I'm in the middle of shooting another movie. And, I miscalculated the time. I'm training for this walk that I'm doing in Spain, but I can do it from here. Is that okay?
Yeah. If you don't mind, that'd be really cool.
It's an exclusive, dude.
Yeah, we got the candid Vampiro right now. This is great. But yeah, I want to say, even before I get into talking about this new documentary that I just watched, I thought it was fucking fantastic, guys. And before for the last couple years, I've been following you on social media, Vampiro, and I want to commend you on how you use it by just projecting positive energy and very conscious about like mental health and everything. I think it's very important in these type of times right now.
Well, thank you for that. And yeah, I'm pretty much changed my life around. That guy in that movie doesn't exist anymore. We're actually doing the second part of it right now, which is me. Completely changed my life around and lost 140 pounds and all that stuff, and preparing for this walk. You know, mental health and fitness is the way to go, son. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, a lot of like your blogs, you'd randomly come on, and sometimes it would even hit me personally on a day when I was feeling low and give me some energy. So I heard I am the first interview you guys are doing today, so I'm excited I get to give that energy back to you in sort of way, because
well, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I've always appreciated that about your social media and everything. And I want to say too, Michael, it's nice to meet you. Like I mentioned, I love the film, and I want to know how you guys like linked up and decided to do this documentary.
We were running drugs from Colombia, and Michael got caught.
Yeah.
So we don't want to tell that story, Mike.
Okay, next question, right?
Next question.
Yeah.
This is definitely a Michael question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've known each other on and off for many years. I used to live in Mexico back around 2002. I used to write for Super Luchas, which was a wrestling magazine in Mexico City. That's how I got to know Ian and everybody in the scene in Mexico. And then we reconnected about 18 years later. And we bumped into each other in the airport. And then he was telling me what he was up to. He was telling me that he was commuting from Thunder Bay to Mexico City to Los Angeles and back again. So that he had to be back Sunday night to take his daughter to school in the mornings. And I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. The commute alone is like every single week. And then we started to, one thing led to another, and that became the sort of the seed for the documentary.
Oh, that's amazing. Like, so yeah, you just kind of caught him at like a piece of time. And one thing I found was super interesting about the documentary is it wasn't only like the present time. You jumped around and had even footage from, I think, maybe like the 90s and all over the place of your life, Ian. And
yeah.
And did you always have this footage on deck, like for maybe like one day this is going to turn into something bigger, like a bigger puzzle?
No, not at all. Because first, hey, dude, does the sound of the traffic bother you? Because I can cut up the street where there's no traffic.
I can't really hear it on my end.
Okay. No, the more that I'm nobody special. I'm just a guy. You know what I mean? Who was in the right place at the right time. My life is extraordinarily bizarre. There's 99% of the craziness is not in the movie. And nobody believes me when I tell them. So it's kind of like, why document things? Because it's just too unreal. It's too unbelievable. Even Michael will tell you. Like I would tell you, hey, I'm doing this, that, the other thing. I did this yesterday. I'm doing this tomorrow. And it's like, fuck, James Bond don't even do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I do. And I did it. And then Michael saw it. And it's kind of like, I don't know how he was able to pull a story about me and my daughter out of my mess of a life, but he worked a miracle. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, it's amazing how it all pieced together too. I'm a filmer myself, and I edit, and just watching something like that, how the puzzle came together is just amazing, Michael. And did you, what on your end? what were like the challenges of doing something like that?
I mean, there wasn't a lot of the challenges. Were just trying to like taking all of that stuff and putting it together into a story. Was because there's just so much footage, so much stuff. We were fortunate enough to work with Danny Palmer, who was formerly from Vice, and sorry, just give me 1 second. I lost you there. He's formerly from Vice. And he did Dark Side of the Ring, and season 1 did a few episodes of that. So he knew wrestling really, really well. And basically, we went down this rabbit hole, just like looking for archival footage. The cameras have been following Ian for years and years and years. So our job was to gather as much footage as possible, and then the focus was the story of Ian and Dasha. That was always the heart of the story. But then, how do you kind of get everybody up to speed on his life and all that? So we chose a bit of a non-linear editing style to sort of kind of like go back to the past, back to the future, to the present, back and forth, to try to get you going. So it was fun, and it was what, the stuff that we wanted to cut was so hard. It was so hard. I mean, we could make a whole movie on Milli Vanilli and his time there. That's a whole documentary.
Yeah, I'm sure like there's so many pieces of what you do, Ian, where they're all just like sub stories. Like it could be like a total series. And one thing I enjoyed as like a production nerd is seeing you behind the scenes at AAA and how fucking passionate you are. You said like sometimes you punch the screen as you're doing the switcher, and I totally get it. Like I believe what you put out, the energy you put out is what you receive in life. And when you're directing something at that high level, you gotta set the example for whether it's the locker room or the other cameramen and everything. It's cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty high energy, I guess.
Yeah.
I do everything that way. Volume on 10, full speed ahead, no brakes, no safety net. And I get results. So my style doesn't work for everybody. My style of doing that bothers some people, but I don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying?
What were you going to say, Mike?
I was going to say, I think today's interview, this podcast is a prime example of Ian being able to do multitasking. Right now he's doing a 10-mile hike right now as we talk, and we're doing a podcast. You know what I mean? This is classic. This is classic, man.
Like I'm shooting a movie right now, and actually I'm shooting an episode. The guys are across the street, and I got a little fucking mic on this thing. I'm shooting a 360 movie in an episodic TV show right now during this 10-mile hike.
Wow!
And I'm doing this with you guys.
Wow! The king of multitasking. That's amazing.
I don't know about that. It's mental health, brother. You can either sit at home and listen to the voices, or you can put those voices to work.
All facts, brother. All facts. One thing that I find so interesting about you too is I've heard on a couple of your lives that you wake up at 1 a.m. in the morning, and that's when you start your day, when everything's all still.
And I smoke major marijuana when I'm walking 10 miles too.
Attaboy. Actually, I'm loving this too, especially I released one episode last week, and a listener sent a comment in saying they love how candid this is, and this is just candid to like the next level. It really fits the vibe of what we do on this program here, and then some.
But
there you go.
Yeah, I appreciate you talking to us as you're doing your walk and everything.
Yeah, so punching a TV screen is no big fucking deal. If that's what you got to do to get the job done, then that's what you do,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. One thing I thought, another thing I thought was cool about that movie too was like the look that on the lucha culture, because I grew up watching like North American wrestling, and I've always been fascinated with like the luchadors. I watched Monday Night Wars, like all the WCW shit, all that. But then like I don't really know the history of like I'm familiar with you and Conan, and I always knew you had history, but to actually like see it on video and hear a little bit of that story, it was really cool to me to see your roots and like how big of megastars you guys were over there.
Yeah, it was You can't explain it. You can't watch it on video. You can't see it in a movie. You had to have been there. Mm-hmm. It's like I use this word, and I mean no disrespect to anything or anyone or anybody's likes or dislikes. I'm only using it because it's a word that you're all going to be able to understand visually, quickly. It was like Beatlemania. It wasn't pro wrestling.
Yeah.
It was at that time, culturally, in Mexico, the government had just lifted the ban on American or North American or European heavy metal rock and roll bands, for example, in Mexico. The media stopped being so censorship heavy. MTV was allowed on the air. So all these things were happening. Like there were athletes that were rebellious. There were people starting to get tattoos. Guns N' Roses and LA Guns and Faster Pussycat were just starting to hit on MTV. So anything that was alternative was still kind of friendly. Hip hop worked with punk rock. Punk rock worked with skateboarders. Skateboarders started to get into rap metal. But we were all friends back then. So when I got to Mexico, the Anne Rice books, Interview with the Vampire and all that stuff, had been the Bible of all these LA rock and roll vampire people. And I was one of them. I really liked the version of her telling of a vampire who was a street performer, telling all the other vampires that he was a vampire and he was going to tell the world that vampires existed. I thought, I'm going to take that and do the exact same thing in Mexico in wrestling. And when I did that, I did it at the right time when all of these things were booming and all of these young people needed an outlet. And I was that guy, because wrestling, I wasn't a movie star where you can't touch them because of bodyguards and security. I was wrestling in very low income areas, anywhere, sometimes 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times a day. It was unbelievable. So you could touch me because I would literally change in your bedroom, walk to the ring, and you can, walk with me, leave the ring, walk me to my car. So the fans had access to us, and we became one of them. So it was Beatlemania. It wasn't normal. It had nothing to do with wrestling. It was just, we were in the right place at the right time, and it was 100% rock star.
That's amazing. And it's interesting to see too, like how wrestling in Mexico is so embedded in that culture, and over here it's almost like a taboo to watch, or people are embarrassed to say they watch it. And it's really interesting to me to see like those both sides of just like the different cultures. And
I think the easiest way to put it, and I think Michael will agree, is, Mexico is an oppressed society. There's a lot more corruption. It's a lot more talked about. It's a normal thing to know the government's corrupt, for example, right? Just as a topic of conversation. Society is tough down there. The economy sucks. The corruption, the gangs, the violence, the insecurity, all those things give you a culture where people need something that they can touch that's going to inspire faith and hope. And that's pro wrestling, because storytelling is storytelling, good versus evil. At the end of the day, the good guy's going to win. That makes people come back the next week. So in Mexico, because of the situation culturally and because of the politics of the world down there, it's so embedded that I'm going to go have a few beers. I'm going to scream every bad name. Think of my boss. Think of the corrupt police. Think of paying my taxes. And I'm going to scream all those things at the bad guy. And the good guy winning is me giving the middle finger to everything that bothers me. So that's why it means so much in Mexico. Up here, if you're not a teen boy, you get laughed at.
Yeah, it's very true. And it's interesting too. It's like how the themes that you brought into the ring, like you just mentioned, it connects beyond wrestling. And you think about in North America at its biggest time, it was Stone Cold punching his boss. It's like it's something people outside of the program always wanted to do or connected with and shit like that. So it's interesting to me to see the waves of how when it's hot and when it's like kind of cold.
Yeah, that's why. And people grow and move on, and that's why it usually has a cycle of 4 to 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're, and then you just got to rebuild it.
Yeah, definitely. I also think I'm gonna keep sounding like the biggest mark right now, but I think was a lost opportunity for WCW to not include you in Conan's history, because I didn't know this, and I would watch every week. But like until like later in life, I hear interviews of you guys, and even like what you guys were doing with your time. Like you would bring in the Misfits, and Conan would bring in the No Limit Soldiers. You could have had like punk rock versus rap, and that would be another thing that goes beyond wrestling. Like magazines would have talked about it and shit like that. But did they just not know about like your history, or didn't like want to bring that?
I don't know. I think there was too many other influences going on there in WCW for them to have worried about us too. Yeah. But going off of what you just mentioned, that's probably one of the. Now that I hear you say that, it makes sense to me. What Michael did is putting that feud in the movie, because if you watch the movie, you will see the because Conan and I have given our versions over the years, but just hearing how interested you are in it, in the movie, you can actually see it.
Yeah.
There's no difference in the story he tells or the story I tell, and it's there on video. So there's no bullshit. You know what I'm saying? And whether I like him or not, or whether he likes me or not, I've known the guy for almost 40 fucking years, and we survived. So the movie does tell that story. And you can't leave real life in the hands of a wrestling company at any level, because they'll fuck it up. And that's another good thing about the movie. The movie's the real deal. You know what I'm saying? The movie, there's no bullshit. It's not a made-up story coming from 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th parties. You're in my house. It's the real story.
Yeah, there's a very raw feel to it. It's incredible. And Michael, I want to ask you, like was mentioned earlier that you were a writer for like lucha stuff, or how did you get into that whole universe there?
I mean, I'm a fan since I was like 4 years old, right? So my dad used to take me to Maple Leaf Gardens to watch wrestling. I used to see there was this guy called the Bear Man in Canada, and he used to do a traveling wrestling show around the towns, and used to see him. And so I as a kid, I was like, it's in my blood. And then I ended up moving to Mexico. I met my wife there, and the first thing I wanted to do was, learn about lucha. And then I ended up getting a job and writing, being a reporter there, and I got to meet everybody. And for me, it was an amazing education. It was a totally different world, and for them to give me an opportunity to interview them and to follow them around, it was great. And that was like 18 years ago. I never thought at all that was ever going to be useful. You know what I mean, in terms of what I'm doing today. But there you go. Like everything happens for a reason. And when I bumped into Ian, like this story, we didn't do the story 10, 15 years ago. It felt like this was the time to tell it and use everything that we both had learned over the years and kind of come together to make this. And it was a great experience.
Yeah, that's so cool to hear. And again, like you mentioned, everything happens for a reason, and I truly believe it too. Just a little off topic too. For the longest time, I kind of grew out of wrestling after the Monday Night Wars, and I've got back into it. But what kind of sparked my love for it again was finding Lucha Underground. In a few years ago, and the one thing that actually dragged me in was the first episode I watched was the season finale of season 1, and seeing you again, Ian, which really excited me because I haven't seen you in years, and then the match you had with Pentagon just kind of blew my mind because I've never seen like a death match on like North American television before. You always had to buy some like crazy bootleg tape from Japan to get that. And just the whole presentation where the show was different. It just felt like a movie. And I hear a lot of interviews of people who worked on Lucha Underground where it's kind of like they love it or hate it for like whatever reasons. And I just want to know how did you feel about your experience on that show?
I loved it. I had fun because I wasn't a main player.
Yeah.
On camera, meaning when I was Vampiro, active Vampiro, I was the guy who had to carry the show. Here, I wore many different hats on the show, and I got to produce, I got to be an agent, I got to be part of the creative, and I was a commentator, and I was the hype man. I was all kind of things for the show. I had a great time. I learned a lot. I grew as a person, but it was also a very difficult time too, because it's when I was diagnosed. It's when I was at my sickest. It's when the movie was starting. It's when my daughter was going through some stuff. How I survived, how I didn't die. I had a stroke. I was 340 pounds. You know, how I made it through that month or whatever it was. I don't know. That match almost killed me because the arthritis. I couldn't walk for about a month and a half after that.
Holy fuck.
But I didn't tell anybody. I don't care. You know, it is what it is. Yeah, I'm blessed. I'm here. I'm alive. This is a blessing. I'm healthy. But that match, that match was like about a 45-minute match. They only showed like 12 minutes on TV.
Oh,
it's only it's a 30-minute show, and I knew that. But I broke all the rules, and I should have gotten fired and gotten fined. Me as a producer, you know, when you have a time on TV and if they tell you 6 minutes, that's it, 6 minutes. But I thought to myself, I've done this for 40 years. I don't give a fuck. What are they going to do, fire me? And I was in charge of passing the torch to a young man. And you can't do that in 6 minutes. You've got to tell a story. You've got to first pay homage to what you've done. You've got to let the fans see why Vampiro is Vampiro. Then you've got to pass the torch. So I took about 45 minutes. I got in trouble like crazy. But the fans still talk about it. They say it was an iconic moment. They say it was a great match. Steve Austin tells me all the time. Everybody tells me that was one of the greatest matches they've ever seen. I thought it was the shits, but it did its job. Pentagon is now one of the biggest stars in the world of pro wrestling. So that's how you do things. And it doesn't make me a lot of friends, but if you put me in the driver's seat and you let me run with the ball, even like this movie, nobody ever got backstage in a dressing room at Triple Mania. No one ever got to see that kind of shit, but we did it. So that's the kind of the way I can respond to you about Lucha Underground. The way you saw that movie, multiply that by 500, and that's what I do at Lucha Underground. So it's just another day at the office, dude.
Yeah, wow. And you're right about like taking the time to do that with Pentagon too, because I haven't heard of him before that match, and then after it I was a fan, and I followed that show because of that storyline, and it continued for a couple more seasons, and it was just so fucking cool. But also I want to commend you on that, your attitude of just kind of knowing in your heart that sometimes you got to step outside of the box. Sometimes you have to break the rules to push something forward. And even if it gets you in trouble, almost like kind of be, in a way, a martyr for the bigger cause, in a way. And I feel like that's what you do in like a lot of things in your life. Just kind of like, I don't give a fuck attitude and just go for it.
To an extent, yes. But again, if it wasn't for Michael reeling me in or controlling the boundaries and understanding that me doing what you just said, it's not so much that I don't give a fuck. My perception of reality is distinct, so I handle things a different way. I believe as a filmmaker, Michael has that touch, that patience to let me. You know, it's like a wild horse in a cage. You let him out, he jumps up and down, he bucks, he kicks. And then after he does that, he's fine. And I think that was one of the ways that Michael was able to deal with me, because there was a lot of emotion in all that shit. So, even hearing things like you just asked me, there were some kids who didn't like their experience in Lucha Underground. Well, fuck those guys. They didn't have a job before. They sure kissed ass and fucking begged and pleaded to be on that show when it was on the air. And now it's not on the air and they speak bad about it.
Yeah.
I don't go for that. See, that's one of the reasons why I'm out of the wrestling business, because I just can't stand the hypocrisy, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I definitely know what you're saying too. Like a lot of those people who are I'm fans of now, like you mentioned, I didn't know who they were before Lucha Underground.
So that's
you're not going to know about them after next year either, so don't worry about
it. Shots fired. And Michael too, like Ian mentioned your patience, and I've talked to like a lot of different filmmakers, and some started off making documentaries and quit making documentaries because they didn't have the patience. They're like, oh, we need a script and shit like that. And it's interesting when making a documentary, it's like you're capturing like a moment in time, but you don't really know when the ending's gonna be. Like you have to just always be recording and being there. And I kind of like want to know a little bit more about like your headspace on this journey following Ian around.
Well, it was about 2 to 3 year process. We've done. It was pretty cool because we had a very small crew. It was just basically just two of us. We had the ability to be more like a fly on the wall and just kind of observe. So we had a lot of those moments where we could just observe and just objectively, watch everything kind of unfold. So we were fortunate about that. But at some point or another, you have to, you have to stop and we had certain milestones that we wanted to hit, and we managed to hit those. And at the end of the day, the ending for me is like, people, it's people like, is it a sad ending, a happy ending? It's a very positive ending, because what happens is, even though Ian is diagnosed, he doesn't stop. He's still fighting. So when he comes back, it's like, to show you that he won't quit, he will not stop, and he'll stop at nothing to support his daughter, and all of that, and he won't stop. He won't let Alzheimer's get in the way either. And as you can see, since the documentary, he's lost all this weight. Now he's just finishing his 10-mile walk. And there you go.
Yeah, and still going strong too. And yeah, you mentioned. The moments with his daughter, and I don't know, that's another narrative of this whole movie that I really, really loved. Even watching like that, it was getting me emotional. It made me want to just call somebody and check up on like my best friends and some family members of watching that. And I really love how you put her above everything. You can be in the middle of directing Triple Mania, which for people who don't know, that's like the WrestleMania in Mexico. It's the Super Bowl. You could be directing that, and just like if she calls, you're gonna pick up, and it doesn't matter. She's first above everything.
Isn't that the way it's supposed to be?
Yes, but there's a lot of people that don't have parents like that in their lives. But I don't know. It's a good example to set.
Well, the world's falling apart today.
Yeah, you kind of cut out there, but yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, another thing I wanna ask about too is your. Oh, I think we might have lost it.
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay, cool.
Is you have a show where you're doing interviews yourself on the El Rey network as well? Yeah. Like, how's that experience for you? Have you? I
just did 10 miles. I don't give a fuck about the El Rey network.
Okay. That's all right. But
I'm kidding. That was a blessing. I love the El Rey network. That's home for me.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about that show back in Lucha Underground, but just because of timing and stuff, and I was really sick, I couldn't do it. So I jumped at the chance because I knew what's coming, like what I'm doing next with my life. And it was urgent for me to separate who I am from the character Vampiro, because Vampiro is very visual, very animated, very physical, very punchy, very, very aggressive. Whereas my new line of work is speaking. So it's a great opportunity for me to practice holding the people in my hand, whereas before I could hold them in my hand with physical storytelling. So now it's a whole other thing for me, and I'm enamored by the opportunity.
Yeah, that's awesome. And also I was watching your live yesterday, and you mentioned that you got a lot of amazing stuff ahead. Is there anything you can talk about with these new projects, or let us know what's going on with them?
Of course. Well, all of it is because of this movie. So this movie is not, as Michael just finished saying, is not the end of the story. So the second part of that is my recuperation. Then the third part of it's going to be what you can do to achieve the same results. So right now we're in the middle of doing the second part, and we've been training for a year to do this walk in Spain. The walk in Spain is like 500 miles, but we can't go because of the virus. So we're going to do it in California, but it's on a traditional route that used to be part of Mexico when California was still part of Mexico. And there's a lot of missions and old 400- and 500-year-old churches that were used, especially during the revolution. So we're going to rewalk that route that the pilgrims walked then. And we're going to be doing a lot of ritual magic, which is the meditations and planting of sacred stones to clear the pathway to get the energy flowing in a positive way again on that route, and hopefully make it a yearly pilgrimage, letting people know how many beautiful things they have right here in the United States.
Well, that's cool to hear. And
pretty cool, huh?
Yeah. To remind everybody, the Vampiro documentary is going to be everywhere in Canada on iTunes October 6th. We're going to plug the shit out of that because I really love this movie. And lastly, I want to thank you both for spending the time with me today.
And
done, motherfucker.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you recover from your walk and everything.
I just did.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. I hope you both have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thank you, brother.
To the Creative Imbalance podcast can burn in hell.